Welcome back. You're watching Global Dialogue. We're in conversation with the global CEO of Cisco, Chuck Robbins, on their plans for India, their announcement of setting up a manufacturing facility here in the country for the very first time. You know, I want to understand from you, Chuck, how as CEO you're reading the many changes that we are seeing shape economics and shape economic policy. The assumption was that through the course of the pandemic and what transpired post the pandemic, there would be a decoupling with China. Now, there is clearly no decoupling. There is a de-risking that seems to be taking place. You've got President Biden saying, look, move supply chains back to America. You've got India saying, make in India, and for the world. As a CEO, you know, how do you read what's going on and how geopolitics is shaping economics and trade?
It's a very, very good question, and you know, it's something that we spend a lot more time on today than we did 5 to 6, 7 years ago, obviously, and it really is a byproduct of there's a nationalist movement that's occurring in almost every country around the world, and COVID actually brought that out because I think countries realized dependencies that failed, and they didn't fail because necessarily there was malfeasance. They failed because of capacity in certain cases. So that's led countries to rethink their dependence and not becoming independent, but making sure that you have a little more control of things that are important. And then also data privacy, data sovereignty, and all those things are leading countries to, some countries want cloud services to be housed and data to be localized. In India, it's very important to the Prime Minister to build a manufacturing sector here. And with the number of people here and the size of the market, that actually works well because it actually makes good business sense for all of us. So I'd say that we just have to deal with all these dynamics. You know, you can wake up and wish the world was different, but it's not. And it's just a complex puzzle that we get up every day and we spend our time figuring out what it means to our business and how to adapt to it, and that's just what we do. And
so how much time do you spend on scenario planning and risk planning, you know, especially keeping in mind what's happening as far as politics is concerned?
We spend more time today on that clearly than we did 6, 7 years ago, and we've always done, you know, we've always had enterprise risk management, as every company has. I think the difference is we've added geopolitical dynamics to that model over the last few years that we probably didn't have as much to think about 6, 7, 8 years ago.
So when political leaders talk about things like friend-shoring and near-shoring, how does a CEO like yourself respond to that?
Well, we have to think about our business, and we have to do what's right for our business, and it's not quite as simple sometimes as a soundbite, and supply chains are very complicated, and they've been built for over 2 decades the way they've been built, and you don't unwind them that quickly either. And it's a very complicated ecosystem relative to component suppliers and logistics and tax implications and labor. And so all of those things come into play, and so at the end of the day we have to look at all of it. We look at all the legalities, all the tax issues, the logistics, the cost, where are our suppliers, where are our customers, where do we need regional hubs. And our teams have been doing this for years relative to dynamically sort of reprovisioning our supply chain based on risk and things of that nature. And this has just become one more risk factor that we just have to put into the model.
You know, let's move away from risks and talk about the opportunities. You talked about the 5G opportunity, which is looking exciting here in India. The world, of course, at this point in time, in raptures over what AI is potentially going to mean and whether this is going to, you know, require guardrails to be put in place right away, or, you know, let this sort of, let's see how this plays itself out. What are you excited about in terms of emerging technologies and the bets that you're willing to make as well, keeping those new technologies in mind?
Well, clearly, I think that the recent emergence of these models for generative AI are going to create lots of opportunities, and any new technology typically comes with a lot of benefits and there are risks associated with them. I think the difference is the pace at which this one's moving. and the rapid engagement of, would you have ever believed that the normal person who's not involved in the tech industry would actually be able to say Chat GPT? I mean, just to know what that is.
Are you on Chat GPT?
Am I on it?
Yeah.
we have people that use it for sure. I've certainly tested it and tried it, and there's other tools that have come out as well. I personally think we do need guardrails pretty quickly, just so we can understand it a little more. So inside of our company, we've actually done that. We've put guardrails up with our teams, and some of them want to go really fast. And I said, we need to understand this. We need to make sure we have the processes in place. We need to make sure we don't have any risk of exposing customer data to these these platforms. We have to make sure we have our intellectual property protected. I mean, there's a lot of things that can go wrong and already have that you've read about in the press. And so what I've told our team is we're going to slow down a little bit, learn, test, so that we can go faster when it's time to go faster. And we already thought about a lot of use cases. There's very common use cases that everybody's thinking about. But it'll be a powerful technology as we go forward, for sure.
Well, speaking about opportunities, you've done a bunch of acquisitions, I think 3 or 4 already. Is that going to be something that you're considering here, specifically from an India standpoint as well? Do you have the appetite for M&A here?
Would love to. Anytime we have an R&D base like we have here, it's very easy and it makes perfect sense for us to acquire companies. And I think we talked to the Prime Minister and some of the other government officials about how do we accelerate the startup community. It's vibrant, but we think it can even be more vibrant here. And anytime we can acquire near an existing R&D center, it just makes it easier for us. And I think that we know India, we know how it works, we have a huge employee base here, and it's just natural.
You said that you know India, you worked here, you've been a long-term committed investor in India. What do you believe have been the most significant changes that are now reshaping your strategy for India?
Well, I tell you, just coming here after being gone for 4 years, you can see the shift in the physical infrastructure. You can see the improvements in physical infrastructure, and that's going to continue. I can only imagine if I'm gone for a year and come back. You can see the digital infrastructure that's been created, the commitment from government, the vision that the Prime Minister has for India, and what he's proven relative to India's ability to execute against that vision. I wouldn't bet against them at all. I think it's incredible. And when you see the pace at which 5G is rolled out, the pace at which the digital identity is rolled out, the payment platforms, I mean, all of these things just show that when you decide to do something, you can do it quickly and at scale. And I think that what's been proven here in the last 3 or 4 years is that the next 10 to 15 are going to be at the same breakneck pace, which gives us great confidence investing here.
Back to the risks now, since we addressed the opportunities specifically here in India. As far as the U.S. is concerned, it looks like there is going to be some sort of a tapering now as far as rates are concerned, but we don't know. And 5% is the new normal today. What does that mean for businesses? You've got the next big imminent threat, which is the debt ceiling, but that hopefully will be resolved.
Hopefully.
How do you read what's going on in the U.S. and the impact on your business specifically?
Isn't it funny that you say 5% is the new normal? I mean, we've been at 0% so long that a whole generation thinks that's normal. And I think the economy grew for a long time with 5, 6, 7% interest rates, and I think that's more the norm. It's what the norm used to be anyway. I think for us, I mean, obviously it increases cost of capital for companies that need capital. It increases, in our particular situation, if we're going to do M&A and we need debt to go do it, which for bigger stuff we would, small stuff we don't. It just increases cost of capital and makes the business model, you have to build that expense into it. But I think it's healthy for the economy over time. I think obviously it's created a bit of a shock in the near term, but I think long term, I think it's healthy for rates to be at a reasonable rate and not where they've been.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait to see if the Fed does decide that this is it for now or hike further. But let me end then by asking you, Chuck, you know, the top 5 markets at this point in time, you've given us a very comprehensive sense of why you're bullish on India and why you believe that India is going to be one of your top performing markets. But what about the others at this point in time? What excites you about the rest of the pack?
Well, I think when you look around at what's going on with all of our customers right now, I mean, they're all re-architecting their underlying infrastructure to deal with their cloud strategy, to deal with hybrid work, to deal with distributed applications, to deal with distributed data. And the constant across all of that happens to be the network and the secure network. And so for us, anywhere where there's a commitment to digital expansion, then that's good for us. And when you look at that combined with the real need to re-architect and to protect against the cyber threats that are out there, and when you look at sustainability, we didn't really talk about sustainability today, but at the heart of sustainability around the world is connectivity and technology, because we connect things, we can make them more efficient, we can make them smarter, and we can actually lower the carbon footprint. So I look at it more across the opportunities across the world and less so about just a specific geography, although certain geographies like India will be growing much faster. So
2023 looking better than 2022, or do you believe that the risks outweigh the opportunities, at least in the near term?
Probably too early to tell.
Jack, it's always a pleasure. Many thanks for joining us here on the Global Dialogue in India, and we look forward to having you back sooner.
It's great to be here, and I look forward to being back sooner.
Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of the Global Dialogue. From all of us here on the team, goodbye, and many thanks for watching.